There's basically two components that comprise productivity. There is I can, which is ability, education, experience, training, IQ. And then there's I will, which is confidence, cooperation, and challenge. So the confidence, personal confidence, the emotional confidence, to have the commitment, to trust myself and others, to have the types of candid conversations that are necessary for effective business today. Cooperation, meeting my expectations of myself and others, and also being in jobs that I really like, that provide me a positive challenge. Sometimes I'll ask people, you ever managed anybody who had the ability and the willingness both? And they'll say, sure. And I say, I bet you spent very little time managing those people. And they'll say, yes. The reason why communication is an issue is because people hear what they listen for, and they use their personalities at an unspoken and non-verbalized level to listen with. Now, oftentimes it's difficult to really believe that someone is smart or is committed or has the same commitment to the goal that you have if they use a different personality strategy than yours. We provide awareness that leads to change, that creates profit, and that's the value added. But awareness always precedes change, but awareness doesn't guarantee change. Change follows awareness, but awareness does not guarantee change. We've all increased our awareness about certain things and very little changed. So the components that are necessary for change are time, persistence, courage, and the willingness to feel uncomfortable. If we're not willing to invest in those two things, then all the awareness in the world won't have much of a real world impact. We all have inherent, really genetic, if you will, personality strategies that we move to under stress. So when we're being asked to make big decisions, dealing with stressful situations in our business, what I say functional stress, then we move to that part of our personality that is instinctive in us. And it's at that point that it really takes a lot of awareness and a willingness to really appreciate diversity, to be willing to listen to or really understand other people's perspectives. I don't have a hard time understanding someone else's perspective as long as I feel safe. The personality style that you see when you first meet people in most cases is different than the one you're going to find once the honeymoon's over. I oftentimes ask groups and individuals, I'll say, to make this point, I'll say, how many people here are married, have been married? And they'll raise their hands, and I'll say, okay, then look at the socialized part of your personality, which is how you were taught you ought to be, because that's what your spouses thought they married. Take a look at the instinctive part of your personality, which is really core to you and where you move under pressure and stress, because that's who they found out they were going to be married to once the honeymoon was over. And in most cases, I would say easily 85% of the time, those two are different. So we'll hire people oftentimes based upon what we think they ought to be and what they think they ought to be, assuming they're going to end up being like us. So we'll hire people based on their abilities and the fact that they seem to be like me, but then we'll fire them oftentimes based on who we find out they really are. Try not to talk in terms of good or bad. There are accepted personality styles that we expect actually most people to, in this culture, in this country, we do have a certain personality style that you're going to see most of the time, probably 85% of the time. So we have an expectation of how we think people ought to be. Okay, we're a country that really was taught to be very positive, team-oriented, value freedom. You'll see many top-level managers have a personality that comes across as very team-oriented and understanding, and yet under pressure where they move to is one that's very black and white and very convergent. Basically, this is what I want and this is how I want it. And that's not necessarily wrong. In fact, I can tell you a lot of positives about that. But I will say this, in most cases, how people come across, particularly top-level leaders, and the personality style they project is different from where they really come from. What we work with people in groups is to create, first of all, self-awareness. If I can't manage myself, then I can't manage diversity.